Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Cup of Joy. I'm your host, Ariana Joy Christie, and I am so glad that you are here. This is a space to inspire, to learn, to grow, and to challenge. Get ready to fill your cup and spread a little joy along the way. Okay, Ali Dunn, leadership coach, writer, and Enneagram expert. Welcome to Your Cup of Joy.
Thank you so much for having me. Can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Amazing. I'm really excited that you're here. I'm very intrigued by an Enneagram. It's not the first time I've heard it when I came across your profile. I think I've done the quiz before, like in many years ago. And I've also heard of many different personality tests and things like that. So I want you to start by giving us a Cole's Notes, like quick and fun Enneagram 101 for those of us that don't really know about it.
For sure. And I love that you use Cole's Notes because I feel like that's from the Canadian lens. And I also am Canadian. So although I live in California, yeah, super fun. So there are many personality assessments out there. And as a coach, I've done them all, used them all. And I first started working with the Enneagram probably 3 years ago now. And what I love about it or how it can change your life is that it measures motivation, which is very different than some of the other assessments. They look more at strengths or external skills that you can see. The thing with the Enneagram is motivation is beneath the surface, right? So before we got on the call today, we didn't know your type. I could not look at you and tell you your type. And so what happens with motivation is it really is the anchor point for all the decisions that we make, whether it's at work, whether in your personal life, in your self-awareness. And I think it's the best tool for all of those things.
So interesting to me because you're right. Like you can sometimes tell someone's personality by like spending time with them, but the motivation that goes behind it is so internal and intrinsic, I guess, that it is different than other types because so in my past work, we used disc profiling a lot. And it's like sometimes you're spending time with someone and immediately like I used to be able to spend like 5 minutes with someone and know exactly where they were on that scale. But I guess with Enneagram, that's different.
Exactly. And it's like you can tell sometimes like the language people use, and if you know them well enough, the things that are important to them. Like, for example, a type 2 on the Enneagram is the helper, and they're about relationships and connection, and they tend to have warmth. Right. So if I'm with someone and they seem to be people first oriented, I think, okay, maybe this person might be a 2. But I would say in my work, I'm usually 75% right, and then can be surprised from people because it isn't necessarily something that is very visible. So that's what makes it so interesting, which is also why people need to know their type, right, in order to use it.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. What are things that people can use the Enneagram for then?
Oh, I mean, I like to look at it in kind of 3 categories. So one would be self-awareness, right? So part of the Enneagram, so once you discover your type, part of it is understanding your strengths, your challenges, and your blind spots. And for me, I think the blind spots is really the one that resonates the most with people because it's what we can't see, but it's perhaps how we're perceived by the world. And so it can really help you understand how people see you, how you show up in the world, and the shifts that you want to make. Because with the Enneagram, there's 9 types, and one will be your default motivation. But the idea is to integrate with all the types. Like, how can you use each type in your life to kind of be more well-rounded? And so I think on the self-awareness tip, it's around understanding like yourself better so that you can show up better. So as a business owner, I'm a type 7, which is that enthusiastic visionary, which means I have all the ideas, all the possibilities. I get really excited. But the shadow side of that is details are hard for me. Right. So when I understood that my type, I was like, okay, this is how I could run my business better. So that's what also can help you in your career, feeling more aligned with your type as well. And then in relationships, when you understand like your partner and yourself in a relationship, it can just help depersonalize so that you're not necessarily always blaming each other for the things that are going wrong. It's more, okay, we have different motivations and how can we work with them together?
I have been learning a lot about value-based decision making. How do values work with an Enneagram? Because when you're saying that it takes like kind of the emotion out and really looks at this deep-rooted motivation, is that relating to values? How does that work?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because my work first started actually in values. So I think in coaching, values are so important. So when I first work with a client, we do a values and purpose assessment, as well as the Enneagram, because, and this I'm sure has happened to you through your journey with motherhood and just in life, when our values are misaligned, we feel, detached, depressed, anxious, like so many different feelings come up around that. And so
Mhm.
alignment in your values almost first is what I would think. And then from there, you can kind of marry it to your Enneagram type, because essentially, if we talk about this 7 type that I am, it's like my values are freedom. My values are variety and adventure. And those actually go hand in hand with what a 7 values. So it just, the
Oh,
two kind of go together. And it's like, I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, go mining for values in your Enneagram. But for the most part, like there's another Enneagram type, which is the type 5, that's the specialist. And they tend to be more quiet, more introverted. Their motivation is around understanding and knowledge. And usually, if I meet a 5, their values are autonomy, right? Knowledge, independence. So there is a match. And then that, of course, can help you lead in your decision making.
totally. That's so interesting to me. Do you ever see conflict in values versus Enneagram, like where it's not making sense and people are struggling maybe internally?
I think sometimes it's if there's resistance, because sometimes
Mm,
people don't want to be their Enneagram type. So that can show
true.
up, right? So it's like, because there can be some stigma attached to that. And if I do, because I also do workshops in like team environments as well. And sometimes people don't want to be seen as the helper, right? Or they don't want to be seen as the controller. So it comes up more in that sense. Is that really me? And sometimes the assessment is wrong, right? And we can do a redo and we can look at it. But ultimately, I think it's more either the contrast comes in, I'm not living a life aligned with like my Enneagram, or I'm resisting that. So I think you just need to go deeper and figure out
Mm.
what's really going on.
Totally. And sometimes I think that people, like I even found it when I was doing my Enneagram, like some of the things to me come off as a negative thing. Like I'm like, oh, wait, I this is the answer for me for sure, but is that bad? Or like is it,
Exactly.
and I don't know why there's like a negative connotation with certain things that actually could probably be a positive, but we just look at it as a negative.
For sure. And are we okay to talk about your type? Because you sent it
Of
to me. Yes.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So type 8, active controller, right? So, and just to also, reiterate that we have all types within us, right? But we have one natural
Okay.
default. So let's go on the assumption that you are the 8. And so the qualities or characteristics of an 8 are like a leader, right? Bold, direct, decision maker. 8s also have a really high value around justice. Like they want things to be equal. They care about people. They care about the world. They'll fight, right? You'll fight for the underdog. If someone's on your team, you'll really stand up for them.
Yeah.
And I think the shadow side of the 8, or that part that might have felt a little bit icky, is when we're almost too much in our Enneagram type. So we're like overly saturated. So that's when maybe you're more reactive, right? If things
Mhm.
aren't going away and you just, because 8s also are more the assertive type, right? So they're assertive and reactive. And so it can be hard for 8s to sort of bite their tongue. And so I think that's when you notice, oh, I'm really in my 8 right now. And so how do I
Yeah.
dial that back a little bit and kind of either pull from a different Enneagram type, maybe like the 4. The 4 is the creative. And so
Mm.
they kind of balance each other out. So as a 4, you'd like to, either write or create or take care of yourself or be in nature. And that's a really good balance. So I think it's understanding if it's too much of a good thing and then how to pull it back.
Interesting. And so you can have, because my like Enneagram map, whatever,
Yeah.
had 8 obviously being the highest,
Mm-hmm.
but you can still be high in other categories too.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's something called the wings in the Enneagram as well. And that's the number that's on either side of your type. And so as an 8 for you, could either have a 9 wing, which the 9 is the peacemaker and their motivation is around harmony. And then the 7 is that visionary that we talked about. And when I looked at your map, your 7 was high. And I'm not surprised, because I feel like I've, seen you on social and you like to have fun, and I feel like you're adventurous and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I think for you, your default would be, okay, I want to be in control. I can be direct. I know what I want. But then I also have this playful side and this energetic and fun side. So that comes naturally to you. So what I might suggest is, how do you lean into the 9, which is that collaborative side and that
Mm,
peacemaker side? Sometimes, like maybe in a relationship, you might be the one who always makes the decisions. It's like, okay, how do you lean in and say, okay, let's all work on an answer, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny and very, very true. But interesting to me that it's not just telling you, okay, this is what you are, but also giving like ways to be more well-rounded.
Exactly. And also on your map as well, you have a high 3, which is an achiever, right? So the motivation for the achiever is to succeed. So for
Yep.
you, you might find yourself, working a ton. You might find yourself like, in the grind a lot. And the work for the 3 is to step back and say, okay, is this aligned with my values? Right? Because sometimes
Mm,
3s can get detached from their values because they have that like finish line in mind or that end goal. And it's like, wait a
mm.
second, is this what I really want? Or is this what I
Huh.
should want?
Very interesting. I love that because that is very true about me.
Yeah.
Ali, I want to talk a little bit about how you were like a sales exec and
Yeah.
now are a coach, an Enneagram expert. What inspired this change or this pivot for you? How did that kind of come to be?
Yeah. It's so funny. It's a time in my life. It's really interesting because when I was working in sales, so I was working in sales, wholesale and fashion in my 20s. And I originally was actually living in Toronto. And then I moved to San Francisco with my husband. And it was a very fun life. It was great. I was traveling, go to Las Vegas, Toronto, LA, all of those places. And it was not really a life for a mom. But I had not really thought
Mm,
about what would life look like as a mom because I thought,
mhm,
oh, I'm just having fun and I'm doing this job. And I loved
mhm,
sales and I loved the customer relationships, right? That was kind of the thing that really drove me was like if my account did well, if they sold stuff, if they were succeeding. But I did sometimes struggle with, I think, the values piece of it. Do I care that much about the bottom line, right? Like, what is my motivation? And so I ended up having a couple of daughters who I still have. And originally, when I first was pregnant, like the company I was working for, it was in the States, it's the maternity leave is very minimal. And I didn't really
yeah.
plan ahead. I didn't think about that coming from Canada. I thought, oh, I get a year. And here it was like, oh, you get 6 weeks to 3 months. And my family was very far away. So I ended up staying home with my daughter while my husband went to work and had his trajectory and knew what he was doing. And
Mhm.
then I was like, okay, it's probably time to go back to work. Then I was pregnant again with my second child. And so I ended up being at home with my girls probably for at least, I would say about 5 years. And I was not happy in this time. So I had kind of moved to a town where it was fairly normal for women to stay at home with despite having all this education, stay at home with their children. Men were working, and I find myself at the park just like with dead eyes, wondering like, how did I get here? What am I doing? And shouldn't I feel so
Mhm.
lucky? Right. So that was like the story. You're so lucky to stay at home with your kids. You're so lucky to stay at your home with your kids. So what happened was I just kind of went on my own, I would say like spiritual journey with a ton of therapy and trying to figure out like what was wrong with me because it was almost like a sense of belonging, right? Where I was like, I don't belong. I don't know where I fit in, but I don't really have anyone to talk to about this. And I also
Mhm.
think I had with my first daughter, like quite severe undiagnosed postpartum. And
Mhm.
it was like the hardest time in my life, probably, or one of the hardest times in my life. And so after doing some therapy, I ended up finding this coaching group that was with women who are in kind of this transition of what's next in their life. And they were
Mhm.
all ages, right? So they were, 25, 35, 55. And it was the first time in years that I felt like I was with a community of women who I was aligned with. And maybe we had different backgrounds and maybe we looked different, but there was this sense of, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And so with that came values assessment, and it was run by 2 coaches. And so I ended up working with a coach, and it came down to me thinking, okay, what did I love about my past work, which was like the relationship building, like the success of my clients, the independence, right? The travel, the freedom. And then how could I marry that or tailor that to like my current role? So I ended up doing a intense coaching certification and opening my own business. And so that was 7 years ago. And
Wow.
my business has changed a lot. Initially, I thought I would work with moms. Like I thought, oh, I will help myself, my mom's self, and everybody go back to work. And then I realized like no one was knocking on my door. They were not interested. So I ended up working more with career women. Right. So
Oh,
how to
wow.
help women get more balance, right? How to help more aligned values, how to make decisions like through the lens of what they want, not societal expectations.
Mm.
And then over time, I think just being in business, it was like the Enneagram was a tool that really resonated with me. And I felt like people like a framework. So that I
Mhm.
just started working with that more and then working with teams because I like not making people feel uncomfortable, but I like kind of pushing boundaries. And I think in a team setting, you can really support those people that aren't often heard, right? Ensuring like that women's voices are heard, because that's often, what happens in those rooms. And
Totally.
then, yeah, and I like the kind of diversifying like my offerings, right? So I like the idea of doing the teamwork. And then I love my individual clients too, because ultimately, specifically as women, most of my clients are women. There's just a mismatch between, I think, what women want and what's expected. And I just really like to be able to help women clarify that so they can live the life that
Mhm.
they want.
I love that so much. So much of what you said resonates so well with me because, like, when you're saying what people or women especially want versus what's expected, like, so often in my motherhood journey, I really felt like I should feel this way or I'm supposed to feel this way. And the feelings that I was almost like shameful of the feelings that I was truly feeling and wouldn't even speak them into life because I felt bad about them.
Yes.
Like 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 you said about being a stay-at-home mom, like, we had twins, and we thought, "Well, if we try to get care for them so I can go back to work, like, is that gonna be beneficial for our family?" My husband said, "Maybe you stay home with them, you've always wanted to be a mom." He thought he was doing something gracious by saying, like, "You can stay home," and I thought, "Wow, like, this is what I wanted my whole life, I should be so happy," and I
Yes.
was so fucking miserable. I was pit and then I was like, "What's wrong with me? Like, I'm the
Exactly.
problem here. Everybody wants this. Why do I not want it?" Like, that was the
Yes.
message I was telling myself, but it's because no one was speaking out to say, like, "No, I don't wanna be at home all day with my baby talking goo goo gaga." And,
Exactly.
like,
And
some
like
people do, and that's beautiful, but I did not.
exactly. And like accepting that we're all different. Because I think women just get lumped into this one uniform space where it's just like,
Mhm,
oh, you're a caregiver. Oh, you get to take care of your children. And then, like what you're
mhm,
speaking of, that shame, right? I just
mhm,
felt like this weight every single day. I woke up and just being like Groundhog Day and thinking, I can't, like, how am I going to get through the day? And
totally.
who can I tell that to? And then it was the therapist that at least I could be more open. And then she helped me understand, like, my values and how misaligned what I was
Mm,
doing was with who I truly was. But that idea of, if I did not do that, I was a failure and there was something wrong with me, or I was
mm.
heartless, right? I think that, and there's no pressure for men to do that. And it's
None.
just,
No.
it's a really hard time for women. And it's, yeah,
Mhm.
no one talks about it.
Even saying it now, like, I'm like, "Oh, no, I hope people don't think that I'm, like, bad for saying that," you know? But
Yeah,
I think the more that people talk about it and it becomes normalized that it's okay to not want to be a stay-at-home mom, or it's okay to not want to go to an office job, like, both can be fine for somebody, but the more we hear people speak about their opinions, I think the easier it becomes for us to speak ours into truth. I remember the first time I heard somebody on social media say that they didn't like playing with their kids.
right.
And at first I was like, "Oh my god, like, you're terrible." And then I read the post and I was like, "No, like, not everyone wants to play tea party or
No,
pretend, and, like, that's okay. That doesn't mean you don't love your kids. You're just that's not the type of parent that you wanna be, and that's fine." Like, it's okay to
exactly.
admit that. But I remember her saying that, and then so many other people started admitting that and saying it and realizing it's okay. Like, there are other things I really love to do with my kids that are more important to me and more special. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna play pretend with my children. I just don't love it.
Exactly. And I think it's like all in stages, right? Because I think a lot of people like that baby phase or that
Mhm.
toddler phase or whatever it is. My girls are teens now. So I have a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old. And like, it is
Aw.
my favorite age, right? Like, I am like so in love with this age. And I think some people say, oh, teenagers. And yes, it comes with like its own struggles. But for me, I love the conversations. I love the companionship. I love, again, the adventure. I love all of that piece. And I think when they were younger, it was harder for me. Again, I did what I had to do and what I was supposed to do, but I wasn't
Mhm.
excited to sit on the floor and play Barbies, right? I was just like, I need a babysitter,
Yes. And that's okay, and it's good that we can admit these things and fill our cups too and do things for us. What kind of challenges came with making such a big career transition for you then when you started going into coaching instead of going back into sales after your daughters?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because one of the biggest challenges I faced was really mindset. Like, that piece was
Mhm.
so hard because what I learned, and I say this a lot to my clients when they are in transition and they're changing, not everyone is going to be on your side, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
not everyone, no one is rolling out the red carpet for you for change, right?
You're
So when
right.
you're embarking on change, you are met with resistance.
Mm.
And even I love my dear husband, but I felt like alone in my journey during that time. Like I felt like it was
Mm-hmm.
a bit hands off where you do what you need to do if you need to get this thing running, but I don't know a lot about this and it kind of scares me. So sort of let me know when you've got to figure it out. Right. And again, it's not, to throw shade at him. It's just that at the time it was either you work in an office or you stay at home and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of space. So I think that was really hard for me. So that loneliness in starting, and I think also just not knowing how to run a business, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
understanding like the what I would do now differently. And I do work with a lot of clients who are also business owners, and that helps now too, because I do feel like I can pay it forward and say, these are the things that I would have done and help people with that growth mindset when they're in those early stages of not giving up too. It's very easy. So many businesses just don't succeed, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
you don't have either the support or the platform or the resources. And so I think that piece was challenging, and the self-trust, right? Am I good at this? Right? Like, and no one tells me, right?
Nope.
So there's no boss, right? I'm not getting a bonus at the end of the year. And it's like, you sort of have to be so intrinsically motivated. I think being an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur and like scrappy and resilient and be okay with failing, right? There's no perfectionism in business ownership. So I think those challenges more around like the mental mindset were hard. And then I think financially as well, right? It takes a long time to build a business, understand how to price things, understand what's important. Like I have my own office now, which is great, but that took some time. So I've had that for 3 years, but initially I was working from home, and that was its
Yeah.
own complications, right? Being a woman at home, the idea
Yeah.
I should just throw in some laundry in between calls, said no man ever, right? Like,
Ever.
so that's
Yeah.
challenging too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I find that too. Like I cannot work from home. And especially I'm finding the challenge of that in the summertime. Like, and not to say like my husband is a great parent. Like he is wonderful. He's the best dad.
Mhm.
But when he's in the office at home with the doors closed, nobody's going in the office.
No.
When I go in for a call, immediately there's 3 children grabbing onto my feet, asking me a million
Exactly.
questions, not leaving. Like, it's just different.
It's just
And so
different. Yeah.
it's these challenges that we're met with, and they perpetuate the self-doubt too. Like, those things make me be like, maybe I should be at home. Like, maybe I should take the summer off. Maybe I should be with my kids. Like, do you know what I mean? It's
Oh,
wild when you
100%.
have that doubt.
Exactly. And it's always like, and I say this often, and I feel this myself and with clients, you're either failing in one or succeeding in the other, right? It's like I'm failing at work, I can't keep it together, but I'm a great parent, right? I'm failing at parenting, but my job is going well, right? And I think that
Mhm.
toggle that we experience, and I also even think of like the success or happiness of my children rests on my shoulders, right? I think there's so much
Mhm.
pressure there as a woman because we are kind of that emotional like outlet for them, right? And we are the one that's like, I think working on them being good people per se versus like
Totally.
just the foundational, like, oh, are you fed? Are you sheltered? All of that. And I
Mhm.
think, yes, summer is a joke for working parents as well, right? I
Right.
mean, now your kids are home even more, right? What do
Yeah,
you
or you
do?
can spend all the money
Yeah,
you make on a camp so that they're out of the house,
exactly.
but you're still gonna have to pick them up and drop them off, and you probably will
Yes.
have to cut your hours short. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Again,
Yeah,
patriarchal society.
correct. It
Correct.
is wild. I'm having this conversation so often with people in our community, just being like, literally, what do people do? Like, all my vacation time goes to the summer so that I can somehow
Yeah.
take care of my kids. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's really, really tough. I mean, gone are the days where you put them in daycare for $7 or whatever it was, maybe when I was growing up.
Totally.
It's like right
Yeah.
now, it's like, yeah, the camp is $600 a week. There you go.
And if you
Yeah,
have more than one child, like,
you're done.
good
Yeah.
luck.
So you have
Yeah,
to stay
it's
home. Mhm.
crazy. Yeah, crazy. So having your 2 daughters, how does your role with the Enneagram types and knowing all of that and assessing it all the time, how does that change or impact the way that you parent or teach them?
Oh, it's huge. So, well, and it's funny because in the Enneagram, one of the assessments I use, not the one I sent to you, you actually can do a couples assessment through the Enneagram.
Mm,
So you can find out your partner's Enneagram, and then it talks a lot about like how you parent, how you communicate, all your differences, all of those
interesting.
things. So it's very, very useful. I feel like it's like couples therapy condensed into, a 45-page report. So my husband and I did that together probably 3 years ago, and we realized that we're actually both the same Enneagram type. So he's a type 7 as well. Yeah. So which is not something I see that often. I usually see people who are different types, and I have done couples, Enneagram sessions as well. And what happens with us, or what I now understood, is that we are fun parents. I think we are, we like to have a lot of laughs. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of energy in the house, but there's a lot of areas for improvement. And the Enneagram taught us, and taught me specifically, when I can't kind of like, I call it close the loop, right? And finish, because it's like shiny object syndrome, lots of things going on. I wasn't, and I feel like I've done a better job of course correcting, like really making sure that there's like structure in my house, and making sure that there's like guidelines, and making sure that people have routine. A lot of things that don't come naturally to me showed up as, I would say, my challenges in my Enneagram type. And so once I figured that out, and my husband as well, we realized, okay, there are some parts here that need work, right? And depending on our type. So for me, I have a wing 8, right? So what your type is, this active controller and more direct. So what happens in parenting is that side of me comes out. So I end up being more, I would say, like the adult in the home, and the person who's like ensuring that, the forms are sent in and the kids are getting up and doing all of that. So I have to kind of lean into that side of myself, where I think my husband is a bit more like, kind of flexible and sort of like more, visionary and less grounded. So I end up, I think, kind of sometimes being that adult, but it's kind of helped me understand also where my judgments come from too, right? So this idea, because in the Enneagram, you're kind of opposite of some certain types. Like I mentioned to you, the 8 and the 4, they're opposite yet complementary. And for a 7, the perfectionist is the opposite complementary. So for me, perfectionism, I've always resisted. Like, that's not me. That's what other people do. And it seems confining. And I realized there's actually a lot of benefits, not necessarily to being perfectionist, but there's a lot of benefits to being like structured and having systems and being organized. And so it's helped me lean into that part as well, and be more open if my children are that way. I'm not exactly sure. My younger daughter, I don't know her type right now. Like, they say that your Enneagram type forms in as a kind of a school aged child, depending on its nature and nurture. So you're born with some types, and then some of it is like survival and how you grow up in your family. My older daughter, she's definitely a 7 as well. So I understand now in parenting, like the worst thing I could do is tell her what to do, right? So her core motivation is freedom. Her core fear is confinement. So I have to figure out a way to dance around it and like give her the freedom that she needs with the trust, and still set boundaries. And once I figured that out, it was such a game changer. And we're so close, and I understand her so much better. And I think she understands me. And instead of me before just trying to grip very tightly, it did not work.
Totally. I've been sharing a lot online about one of my sons. We've been seeing an occupational therapist with him, because his behavior was all over the place, and we were having a lot of troubles and a lot of big meltdowns. He's 4 only, keep in mind. But I have been sharing it a lot online. And one of the big like aha moments that my husband and I had this summer especially has been that we have to talk to him different, and he has to be parented different. And he thrives on having purpose and on having like responsibility. Like, he wants to be treated like an active participant in the family, not just someone being told what to do. And once we switched that, instead of being like, hey, you have to do that, we'll be like, oh, do you think you'd be able to help us do this? Like, it would be really helpful for mommy and daddy if you did this with us. Immediately, it changes the way that he responds. And so it's been really so incredible. But now that I'm thinking about Enneagram, I'm like, is it because of personality types that we have to speak to our children differently and parent them differently? Like, yes.
Yes, exactly. Like 100%. Because the motivation, because obviously at the age of 4, I'm not totally sure your son's motivation, but I do think that it is true, because we respond, like we want to be spoken to in the way that we can understand, right? Versus others. And I kind of often say, I talk about feedback a lot in more in the teen setting, but also people are trying to have difficult conversations, say with a partner or a child. and thinking we've been taught kind of the golden rule, which is, treat others how you want to be treated. But I like to
Mhm.
think of like the platinum rule, right? Treat others how they want to be treated. So once
Oh,
you find out, like, because for you, you probably like people being direct with you, I would
totally.
imagine, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
need kind of flowery language. If you were a
No.
different Enneagram type, a type 2, for example, they want like connection first. So it's like, how's
Mm,
your family? How are you? How was your weekend? Like I would never send an email to a type 2 that didn't have some kind of soft intro and then
mhm.
follow. But if I was emailing you, I would like, see you at 8, right? And
Yeah.
that's
And I'm
10.
like,
And you're
perfect.
fine, right? Like that you're
Yes.
not offended, you're fine. So it's like
Yeah.
understanding how people want to be spoken to and understanding like their motivation. It just makes things, like we talked about earlier, just that depersonalizing and makes it easier.
Mm,
So I know when I'm working with certain types, like A, how I can support them best, right? Depending on their
mhm.
motivation and their type. And B, just in general, how to communicate. Like I will try to get back to a type 8 as soon as possible, or a type 1, the perfectionist. But then a 7, it's like, yeah, you'll hear from me whenever, that's okay, right? So it's just like,
Yeah.
it's so interesting that it can just help. I think it just makes your life easier.
Yeah. It is so interesting. So, what age do you think people can do an Enneagram
So
test?
according to like where I studied and my certification from, they say wait until 14 or 15, but it doesn't mean you couldn't like investigate it before. And you can just kind of
Yeah.
again notice, like that's why with my 14-year-old, I'm pretty sure she's a 3 achiever, but she has maybe 8 and 1 too. So I haven't totally figured that out yet. But even just
Mhm.
knowing that range of those possibilities, it's way easier for me to communicate with her and also anticipate her needs. Like she's more she can get more stressed out easily. Like she needs to be on time. Like there's just certain things about her that I've learned that I feel like I can support her so much more now when I look at it through the lens of the Enneagram.
I love that. And for people who are listening, if you don't know anything about Enneagram, too, you can just take those principles in learning how your children respond. So if
Exactly.
you're constantly telling them, like, do this, do that, these are the rules, and they're not responding well to that, then investigate on maybe sugarcoating it, spending more time with them, like
Exactly. Or
approaching it a different way.
collaborating, right?
Yes.
Like sevens
Yeah.
definitely like collaboration. So if you're giving them feedback, they just want choice, right? So if you want
Yeah.
to say like, hey, I know you don't necessarily want to clean your room, but do you want me to help you? Would you like me to put on music to do it together? Do you want to like set a clock? Like whatever it is, but just allowing
Mhm.
them to be part of the decision making is just, it's a game changer.
Totally. Yeah. And those are really good, like easy take homes to kind of start with,
Mm-hmm.
especially with children, which
Yes.
I love. You talk a lot about disrupting the status quo, which
Mm-hmm.
I love, probably as my 8. I don't know. Tell me if
Yeah,
that's wrong, but I'm
that's
sure that
right.
that adds. What does that look like in your work specifically for you?
I mean, I think for me, it really is, and it's true about the 8, because I think I lean more into my 8 side with that too, because I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's blow it up.
Yeah.
I think what it looks like for me is, again, specifically with women and what we were talking about earlier with like the societal expectations, right? Like
Mm,
when women come in to work with me, sometimes it's like I want a career shift, I want to open my own business, I feel burnt out, so there's a problem that we're trying to solve. But ultimately most of the work is around, kind of like mindset, limiting beliefs, shoulds, inner critic, right? A lot of this work there. And I think what happens
mm,
is the shoulds are the things that are holding us back, right? And we talked about that as obviously as being moms, but even like, the idea of asking for more money, right? It's like
mm.
they don't want that. How do I look? How do I
You won't be
appear?
perceived. Yes.
Exactly. And like the fact
Mhm.
that as women, we don't even talk about money is also, to me, it's also holding us back, right? Because I think that
Totally.
disruptor piece for me is like, how do I help break down the barriers for women to be independent, like financially successful, confident, and kind of taking no bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
this.
knowing their worth. Like,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And your worth can look different to anyone, and also being okay with that, right? You don't
Mhm.
need to make 7 figures to be worthy, but you just need to be in a place where you wake up in the morning, you feel good about your life and you feel intentional. And so
Yeah.
that disruption piece is like, I often ask the question, is that true? Someone could come
Mhm.
in with a statement and say, like, oh, like I'm never going to get that promotion. I'm like, well, what's true about that? Let's extract the facts, right? And like take the emotion out of it. And then let's create a plan. Because I definitely very action oriented. So it's like, okay, what can you do to move the needle? And also the
Mhm.
failing piece and the taking risks, right? As women,
Totally.
we are not taught to take risks. We are not taught to fail. It's like only raise your hand if you have the answer, right? In school. So I feel like we're
And
very
you
good
better not be
students,
wrong.
right? We're
Yeah.
very good students. Like, I get A pluses all through school. And then you get into the real world and it's like, by the way, that does nothing for you, right?
Correct.
We're like guys like through school are just like jumping out of the box all the time, being innovative, being crazy, being this. And so maybe they don't graduate with honors, but they have this like resiliency. There's something where
Mm.
they're okay not being perfect. They're okay not failing. And I think as women, it takes a really long time to figure that out, if they even figure it out. So I think that
Mm.
disruptor piece for me is like, you come in and you sit in my chair or we pop on a Zoom and it's like, what do you really want? Right. And what is in the way? And often it
Mm.
is that perception and it is what everyone
Yeah.
else thinks. So it's just helping people like learn how to not give a fuck basically about that and just like
Totally.
go through and then having me with them, I think, as like the safety net, right? Like I am here for you. I am your cheerleader. Like my
Mm.
only goal is to help you get to where you want to be and to see a higher vision for you. Like I know
Mm.
it's possible and just like that trust, right? And I just think
Mm.
that for me, when I see someone, whether it's get that new job or get their first sale, open their business, whatever it is, to me, it's like we're moving the needle for our children, right? It's like, because I am
Mm.
thinking about the next generation and that our
Totally.
kids will have equality. And
Mm.
in this day and age, it's very hard right now.
Correct. I really love the challenging the gender norms. I've been sharing a lot online. I'm big into CrossFit right now, and they just had the CrossFit Games, and there is a woman who competes, and her daughter's watching, and it's just like the coolest thing to witness. And she gets interviewed after, and they're like, "Oh, how do you determine like how much weight to put on your bar?" And her answer is, "Well, I look at what the boys are doing and then add some."
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah." Like, that just has
Amazing.
stuck with me for weeks. Like, that lives rent
Yes.
free in my head, and I'm like, nothing should stop us. Like, why do we think that we can't do something? It's because all of these barriers are put in front of us, and we just have to take them down.
Exactly. And we have to question them because I think that's a
Mhm.
lot of my work as well. Or, and you probably just noticed this in your community too, where we're just all kind of like trucking along, right? La, la, la,
Mhm.
la, la. And no one's stopping to ask, like, do I like this? Do I want this? Do I want to be here? Is this working for me? Because we're just going through the motions, right? And so once you stop
Mhm.
and think about that, it's like, actually, I don't like this and I want to make a
Mhm.
change. And so that's when I think the things start to turn. And I think that with the gender norm piece as well, because we're just put in these like buckets or baskets of how it should be. And
Mhm.
frankly, it's not doing us any favors.
Not at all. And then I feel like when we're just doing what we feel we're supposed to do, there's not really any, going back to motivation, like motivation to do it well. Like we're just
Exactly.
doing what we're supposed to do every day. So there's nothing to push us forward or to make us continue to succeed or to set bigger goals or better goals or things that we really want to do. And so
Yeah.
it brings me back to why I started this podcast, which was to really, I was at a place postpartum where I realized like I didn't even make time for myself to pee, like to meet my like natural needs. I didn't
Yes.
eat. I didn't like everything was like, "Oh, do you think it would be okay if I took a shower?" Like, and I was like, "What am I doing for me? Like I'm spending my life making sure that my family has everything that they want, but what about me?" And then I'm resenting it. I'm feeling like shit. I'm not feeling good about what I'm doing. I'm not enjoying myself. And so I wanted to really just debunk the myth that self-care is selfish and
Yes.
really promote filling your cup first and realizing that it's actually selfless to do so because you're going to show up as a better version of yourself in every aspect of your life, a better partner, a better friend, better at your career, better at whatever you're doing because your cup is going to be full first. And I think it kind of goes back to that. This conversation that we're having is really just like self-care is necessary and it
Exactly.
looks different for everyone. So, is self-care something that you practice? What's your favorite way to practice self-care? Is this something that you see in your business too?
I mean, 1,000,000%. Everything that you were
Amazing.
saying just resonates so much. I mean, I
Oh,
this week sent a link to a client, recommending, Eve Brodsky's book. I know you had her on,
mm,
Find Your Unicorn Space, and
yeah.
another book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert for my client to find time for her own creativity and her own self care, right? That maybe goes beyond a massage or a facial or whatever that might be, because she works
Mhm.
hard, mother of two, and I'm just saying, okay, how about Saturday mornings, like 2 hours for you, right? How can we get this
Mhm.
into your schedule so that you feel fulfilled because she is a creative person, but working in a tech job. Right. So
Oh,
I'm like,
interesting.
this is what you need for you. So
Mhm.
I am 100% on board. And I agree, it can look different for every person. And as women, I think in the ladder of needs, right? First, it's let's say children, right? What do my children need? Then what do my partner need? And then maybe it's what do my parents, friends, dogs, cats need? And then I get the leftover crumbs, right? It's kind of how you like eat the crackers off your kid's plate because you haven't
Yeah.
had dinner, right? Which is
Mhm.
also not acceptable, right? So
Correct.
here to fight that. And so for me, like self care for me is I play tennis. That is like my thing.
Love.
I love it so much. And I think probably similar to CrossFit, it's like I have community. For me, it's also challenging because you're always growing. Like growth is obviously a huge value for me. So I love that. And then I like to cook and I like to read. And so there's things that, just make me feel whole. And when those are not present, I know exactly like when I'm not feeling well, it's because those things aren't happening. It's because I'm not reading
Mhm.
fiction, right? It's because I haven't played tennis or I haven't done Pilates or whatever it might be. But there was a long period of time in my life where I didn't do any of those things. And it
Mhm.
was just exhaustion at the end of the day, fall asleep, rinse and repeat. And I was just so unhappy, but it's so hard to find that clarity and it's hard to find it on your own, right? You need
Mhm.
to be with people who are like minded.
And who support it because you also feel guilty sometimes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even still to this, like, I preach this all the time, and sometimes I'll make it to the gym and I'll be like, "Shit, like, maybe I should be with the kids, or I should be cooking dinner, or I should be at the grocery store." And then I'm like, "Stop. Like,
I
stop saying that to
know.
yourself. Like, this is good for you, and you're gonna do all of those things after. Like, it's okay."
Exactly. And it makes you like obviously a better parent, a more engaged
Totally.
mom, a happier person. And I think it took me kind of understanding the male mindset and how
Mhm.
men prioritize their workouts pre-family really, or how, and don't think twice. Like it's kind of a non-negotiable. And
Mhm.
for me, it was always just like the leftover mentality. If there's time left over, I'll do that. But we both know there's never anything left over. So I'm trying to get in this habit because obviously as a coach I want to practice what I preach
Yeah.
and make sure that at the beginning of the week I'm looking ahead at my week and I'm trying to time block this self-care or these workouts and then put my work around it because otherwise if I don't the schedule will just fill up with everyone else's needs
Yeah,
and
and
then
then you will burn out.
exactly
And the way that I speak to my friends about it too, and especially people online who are like, "How do you prioritize this? How are you making it to CrossFit? How are you getting there?" I'm like, I put it in my calendar like it's a doctor's appointment. Like
exactly
if I was sick and I had to go to the doctor, I would never cancel that. I would go. If I was at work and I had a work appointment, I wouldn't cancel it. I would go to that meeting. So if this is my appointment with myself for my well-being, why am I canceling that?
Exactly. And I love that. And it's such a good tip for, the
Mhm.
community, your people, everyone, because, you have to treat it exactly like with the utmost respect that it deserves. Because also, how we teach people how to treat us, right? So if
Mhm.
we're, being kind of confident and holding our worth and making this a priority, no one will question you right?
Mhm.
Because that's just how it is. But if we kind of ask people's opinion, like that's one of the other things I would say when you're going through big transitions, don't ask everyone what they think, right?
Yeah.
Because people are going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't do CrossFit. Can't you just do a 10-minute home workout? And it's like, actually, no, I am not
Yeah.
taking anyone's opinions right now.
That's a good piece of advice. And I really love that you used the word respect because when I sit back and reflect on kind of the changes that I've made this year for myself, it all comes back to respect. Like I didn't respect myself.
Hmm.
And how could I expect anybody else to respect me if I wasn't showing myself any respect? So this to
Exactly.
me is like, no, I'm showing myself that I care about me.
Yes.
And there's
Yes.
nothing wrong about that.
And setting an example, I think, for our children, I think that's the other piece too that comes up. And as they
Huge.
get older, like, being able for them to know how you take care of yourself, how you show up in the world, right? How you get your needs met instead of them thinking back to the leftovers kind of, metaphor. And it's like we want our children to see us as empowered individuals and we want to teach that to them as well.
I honestly think that's what changed it all for me was watching my kids watch me
Mm,
and thinking like, if I'm the person they love the most in the world, like I'm who they look up to, and I'm not even showing love to myself, how are they going to show themselves any love?
so good.
You know?
Yeah, it's so
And it
true.
really just hit me, like, I was like, "Holy shit," like, I need to show them that caring for yourself is extremely important.
Yeah.
And now, like, we have those they're 4 and 2, and I'm having those conversations with them, and I'm thinking, like, this is what it's about.
Yes.
You
And
know, like
like
now
for,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's incredible. I
it's
just
so
think that it's
good.
so
Yeah.
beautiful.
And
Well,
realizing
thank you.
that early is so wonderful for
Yes,
you. I think sometimes it can take a lot longer for people. And the idea that you realize with them at this age, they're going to grow up with you, seeing these habits that you formed. And it's amazing.
totally. Thank you. What is one piece of advice that you can give women, especially about protecting their well-being, that you've had to learn for yourself over the years?
I think that it is about building your community or your kind of, let's call it your board of advisors, right? I think that we try
Yeah.
to do things on our own because of the shame or the guilt or the fear. And that vulnerability piece needs to happen. So whether it's reaching out to friends saying, hey, does anyone have a therapist they recommend? Or hey, Sunday mornings I'm starting this like hiking club, who wants to join? But really ensuring that you are surrounded by people who are on like the same vibration and frequency as you. And people also who are even further along in their journey, right? I think mentorship is really important too. So whether that's business advisor, whether that's, someone who can help you with parenting, or health, whatever it might be. But I just think we can't do it alone. So whether you pay for it, you outsource it, you find it, it does not matter, but just do
Yeah.
not do it alone.
Totally. I love that. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation. And I think that there's been so many good take homes for people. If you are interested in doing your Enneagram or even having that talked about or learned about too, I will put in the show notes how to contact Ali, how to get in touch with her, and how to do that. Where can people find you, Ali?
Well, you can find me just on my website is alidunn.com. And then I'm also on Instagram at Enneagram by Ali. And so you can watch some like videos to try to learn your type. And because my goal is to just make the Enneagram accessible for people so that they can really figure out their motivation in kind of under 5 minutes.
I love that so much. And to end, I usually do some rapid fire. Are you okay with
I
that?
love it.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Same. Morning person or night owl?
Both.
Oh, wow. Okay. Favorite movie or TV show?
Ooh, oh my gosh, that's a good one. I'm gonna go old school and say like Sex and the City for a TV show
The
because I just
best.
right like I
So
love
good.
like the advancement of women in that space. Yes, please.
So good. And if you could go to any concert tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh my gosh,
It was a hard, when I wrote it, I was like, oh, this is hard. I don't even know
Rihanna.
what to say.
I haven't
Oh,
seen her.
sick.
Like I'm like, when is she going on tour? Sorry, it's been forever, and it's like she's someone I haven't seen, and that would be a dream.
Yeah, she's amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for
And
having me.
everyone, you can connect with Ali through the show notes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Cup of Joy. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. And if this episode resonated with you, or if you've been loving this show, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening. Your support helps the podcast grow, it helps it reach more people, and it means the absolute world to me. So keep filling your cup with joy, and I will see you next week.